in San Francisco. We have customers, clients from all over the world, including Japan, India, Europe, and so forth. And our mission is that with more of our learnings from our BioSIM platform, not only we are able to provide the more drugs into the market, but also be able to provide more insights into the minority population or the special population, including women. So perhaps you may know from COVID-19 vaccines, or you may have read in the news, all the vaccine was tested in males, and pregnant women and women in general were not present in these trials, and there are some real reasons for it, and we hope to change that with our company. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that amazing intro. Now I'll pass it on to Christine.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine Jung. I'm president of Blue Clarity. We also recently just changed our name a couple of months ago, so we were Blue Compass to Blue Clarity. We are known for innovation management, data science, and systems engineering. What people like to talk about most about us is the innovation management, because we run hackathons and competitions. We run a hackathon series called Expedition Hacks, and we run hacks around the country. Well, usually during COVID, everything's virtual. We just recently did a business case competition to help small businesses pivot during COVID to help them survive the pandemic. We're about to do another one for small business, helping them, connecting them to a team of people that will help them for their specific problems. We also did a hackathon to combat human trafficking March last year. So that was quickly pivoted to be virtual. It was supposed to be in person at George Mason University. Other topics that we've done is impact of food security on national security, environmental conservationism, improvement to first responder infrastructure. So at the heart of everything, there's a data problem, there's a cyber problem, there's a lot of similarities in all of these problem statements. So what we're doing is we're taking lessons learned from other billable projects and putting it towards these big social impact problem statements. So yeah, my background, graduated out of Carnegie Mellon as a software engineer, did a lot of things, just building systems within the national security space. And then eventually I went into consulting at Gartner, which is an IT consulting or IT research firm. From there, went from finding my own work, executing on the work and closing out the project. So I thought, might as well try this on my own. And that was 11 years ago. And it seems like it's going okay so far. So yeah, I would love to hear what your questions are. I'm really encouraged by how many people are here and seeing your smiling faces. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now we'll pass it on to Grace.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me here. I'm Grace. I am currently a full-time designer at Electronic Arts. Let me know in the chat if you have played any of the EA games growing up as well. I'm also the founder and design lead of the Design Buddies community, which is my Zoom background. I founded it in April 2020 as a way to make some buddies, and it kind of exploded to 14,000 members, and we're partnered with Discord itself, and I see a lot of people from Design Buddies. So let me know if you're from Design Buddies as well. I know I just posted this in the chat as well too. And I'm a part-time student at Santa Clara University studying computer science and engineering. I'm actually a grad student, and I took on a full-time role at EA about halfway through grad school. So finishing that up too, part-time. And I also run an art business on the side. On the side before COVID happened, I tabled a lot of anime conventions. I make merch and like enamel pin stickers just for fun, because before I went to design, I want to be an anime artist. So I do that for fun, run an online Etsy store. I also really like running. And in high school and college, I was a really avid cross-country and track runner. Really had dreams to run in the Olympics, but then injuries happened. But right now I'm back running, training for marathon. So it's another big passion of mine. And I'm also really passionate about social media and blogging. I really love just interacting with people on the internet, building communities as a designer. I'm super passionate about working in entertainment or in the social media field. And my background, actually, I was born and raised in San Jose, California. Went to Lynbrook High School. I saw class of 2019, class of 2015 for high school. And I saw my school has a superposition chapter too, which is super cool. And growing up, I always felt like I had to be pressured into STEM. But then I ended up studying STEM, but also adding some creativity into it too, some design and art into it too. And so growing up in Lynbrook, I want to be an anime artist and a game designer, but I actually came into college as a bioengineering major. I also did my undergrad at Santa Clara University studying bioengineering on the pre-med track. Really want to be a neurosurgeon, MD, PhD, because I want to learn how to biohack myself to run faster. And because both my parents had PhDs, so all my life they're like, do you get a PhD too? And then I realized after working in research lab, doing research in gene therapy, my favorite part of that was actually taking photos of my cells and overlaying them in Photoshop, not the actual lab work. So I decided to go into more graphic design, game design, and doing VR games. So I did that for a few years, interned at Intuitive Surgical as a virtual reality robotic surgery game developer intern. Realized my favorite kind of game dev is actually design, level design, user experience design. So decided to focus my career path on UI, UX, and product design. So that's what I'm doing now at EA. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that intro. So now we'll be getting started with our moderated questions. So the first topic is going to be surrounding your personal journeys in STEAM. So for Joe, my first question is, so you have a very diverse background, having studied veterinary medicine, oncology, genomics. So how are you able to harness these passions and find success in the biotechnology industry specifically?
Yeah, great question. And thank you for asking the question. I think my journey was initially, I thought I loved medicine and I did not know. This is when I was 21 years old. I became a veterinarian and I didn't know that medicine is more reactive and less about understanding the diagnosis or understanding the prognosis of a disease, because you have to be there for the patients no matter what kind of patients, and you want to be able to treat them in a timely manner. And that really helped me learn that I love hard problems. I love problems that are not solved. I love cases where I did not know what's happening in an animal body, and as you know, animals don't really speak, so it comes with its own complexity. But those were like very specific points of entry into the research and development. And another fascinating point that I learned more later in my life is how many animals we rely when it comes to developing a drug for humans. And most of the reliance on animals is highly inaccurate. In fact, all the animal trials that are successful to develop drugs like Tylenol per se, or ibuprofen, are only 8% successful. So 92% times, you're testing these drugs on animals, they get successful and they fail terribly in human medicine or human drug development side. And I really fell in love with this problem because it's been around for over 50 years. It's a big hurdle and it's a massive, costly, and time-consuming effect. Just to give you an idea, it takes over $2.6 billion at least to develop a new drug. And with all these failures, what if someone can come in and improve the 8% accuracy to, let's say, 20%? Not only you're saving the cost, but also the time that takes. It's close to like 12 to 15 years to develop a new drug. And then basically, once I started forming this idea in my mind, I took courses in my PhD, in my master's program, to really understand translational medicine, what kind of computational resources are available, can we model systems and so forth. And basically I worked backwards from it. And serendipitously, in San Francisco, there was a hackathon sponsored by Google, where a patient with a rare disease released his data for people like all of us in STEM software engineering, machine learning engineer can participate and help him identify if there are specific drugs that can target his condition or any pathways that they can look into. And we were one of the groups, and not only we won, we were able to help him identify a drug that already exists into the market. So for me, that was one of the strongest motivational point to start this company by myself, is what if we can go from one patient to millions of patients, because many patients suffer from understanding or being not overlooked at because they are just one or two data points into a massive clinical study. And using computational technology in general, we can solve that. And it's very easy and it's very doable. And hence that path of, having a very diverse background really helped me get where I am today.
Yeah, that was definitely an inspirational story. And now our next question is for Christine. So being the president of your own company is unfortunately not a career path that a lot of young girls are encouraged to follow. So could you tell us about how you ended up pursuing this path and the difficulties you encountered along the way?
Yeah, sure. So there were, running Blue Clarity isn't my first company, I guess you could say. I've done things before that, right before or at the same time. Between my husband and I, we started a social media platform for planning weddings. And we kind of saw that as a serious hobby. We had 20,000 unique visitors a month going to it. So I actually quit my job at Gartner to do that full time. But then the IT consulting kind of kicked up on its own, and we had things coming to our lap, like falling in our lap. So I felt like I couldn't turn that away. But in terms of like a career path, I would say like in the jobs that I had coming out of college, I reached for those like project manager jobs. And whenever there was an opportunity, I didn't wait for it to be given to me. I recommended myself. I suggested, I think that I should be the one to lead this project, or I can lead this task. And so, it starts with these small things where you're basically building past performance for yourself, for other people to see, like, okay, well, if she did this thing, then I could probably trust her with something similar. It's a little bit larger scale. So, so instead of it being given to you, you kind of have to reach a little bit. And sometimes it's not something that I feel like is encouraged on women, unfortunately. But also like women do it to themselves because I feel like, especially when I'm interviewing people, women tend to lead with their weakness and their vulnerability. Like they talk about that, like if I just start an interview with someone, a female person, they will go into all the ways that they're not qualified for the job, instead of saying like, I am qualified because, X, Y, and Z. So I feel like, presenting your best qualifications first and not being, self-deprecating. I feel like that improves your own case for leadership positions. But yeah, even starting before then, like in college, like just leading things and not being shy about leading, I don't know, just all the different clubs that I was a part of, or even starting a club. So yeah, starts wherever you are now.
Yeah, that's a perfect lesson for all of us to go out and explore our boundaries. And that's a perfect transition as well to Grace's question. So from a young age, a lot of girls are pressured to choose between either pursuing art or pursuing science. There wasn't ever a happy medium between the two. So our questions for you are, did that play a part in you choosing your major? And how did you end up finding a perfect balance between bioengineering and art?
Yeah, for sure. So I was growing up in the Bay Area, and a lot of people in my high school were always really into STEM, and there definitely was not any happy medium. It was either like art or STEM. And for me, I was born and raised in San Jose with parents from Taiwan and Singapore, both with PhDs. And since I was 4, they're like, Grace, you gotta get a PhD too. That's like your one set path. You have no other choice but to get a PhD. And so that was my whole life, a PhD in STEM specifically. in high school, I was actually never very studious. Like in high school, middle school, I was always that random kid in class who screamed and made jokes in class to keep people on their toes, loved entertaining people, was always doodling in class, never really paid attention, drew a lot of manga, drew a lot of comics, played a lot of games, was actually leader of one of the top guilds on MapleStory. So I was really into anime, games, and like never saw myself in STEM. And then in high school, I ran cross country and track. I randomly started running, got it really fast, and got really, really interested in the human body and bio. Really loved this class called AP Bio in high school. Let me know in the chat if you took AP Bio too. That was like a favorite class. Really was really into that. So that class made me want to do medicine. And I was learning about like cellular respiration, how I can like breathe more oxygen and make myself run faster. I was like, wow, this is so cool. I can learn how to biohack myself, essentially want to learn more. And because I was running, really avid runner, cross country track, really had big dreams to run the Olympics, want to run a marathon one day. I want to learn further. So I went into college at Santa Clara University studying bioengineering. I want to do biology, but because I was attending this preview day and they're like, oh, bioengineering has like #1 chance of accepting to med school. But I was really interested in the biology, like sciences, instead of like engineering. So I was like, oh, well, I want to go to med school. So I took bioengineering. Had to do math. I never really liked math, but I just did it because it's like better acceptance rate to med school. So that's literally the only reason why, and wanted to biohack myself to run faster. And because of my parents, and I want to like be impressive as well, I not only did I want a PhD, I want to strive for an MD PhD and a neurosurgeon, all these titles, because growing up, I was always told that the more letters underneath your name, the more better you are in society. So that was the kind of mindset I had growing up. But I realized that's like definitely false. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Number of letters after your name does not really mean anything. But and so after that, I've learned to, after kind of how I realized that I don't want to do bioengineering anymore, is actually working in lab. I worked in this gene therapy lab using doing research on gene therapy my freshman and sophomore year of college. My favorite part of that, I was always looking forward to going home every day actually, so I can play video games and I can draw my comics and draw my manga and watch anime. And then my favorite part was actually taking photos of my cells and overlaying them in Photoshop, making me look pretty for publications and using all these graphic design tools, not the actual cell work. And it took my professor to really realize that it wasn't a path for me, because whenever I talked to him, I would always get really excited about video games instead of the actual lab work. So he was like, do you really want to be here? And I was like, nope. And then I kind of just yeeted out of there. It was really hard for me to definitely step down because it was like a pretty prestigious position that I was really fortunate to land as a freshman working with grad students. And it was really, really hard for me to like kind of step away from that. But because my professor could see my excitement in games, that was when I wanted to kind of switch over. So around the same time, so this was around 2018, my junior year of college, a virtual reality lab opened up at my school. And I just started learning how to make games through the internet. A lot of YouTube tutorials, a lot of online Discord communities. And for anyone kind of figuring out what their major wants to be, or you're not stuck to your major, there's so much resource on the internet, so many communities to help you out. So I joined a lot of game dev communities, watched a lot of YouTube videos, tutorials, learned game dev tools like 3D modeling, and went to game development, design and development. And after interning for a while in game dev, I realized my favorite part is game design. And I don't really like to code, and that is okay. After trying it out, I learned that it wasn't the thing that brought me the most energy. So I switched to design. And so I feel like because of my experiences doing storyboarding and anime art and also systems thinking and engineering, that really helps me find design, because UX and product design, what I do today, combines a lot of these visual design storytelling principles, also systems thinking from bioengineering and computer engineering, integrating them into one career. So that's how I kind of found a happy medium between STEM and the creative field.
That's so amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, yeah, thank you so much for your response. Now kind of transitioning more into how you think we can pave the way forward. This is for Joe. Looking back at your experiences as a woman in the biotechnology field, how do you see it evolving to become more accepting, and what impact do you hope to leave in the future?
I think being a woman in biotech, or more like STEM, it's still, there's so many women, and you can see it around here, the numbers don't lie. But when it comes to thinking about the impact and the leadership, the numbers trickle down to very few. And in fact, if you just type in how many women CEOs are there in healthcare space or biotech, there are very few. And interestingly, only two women this year took their companies public. So clearly there is this funnel effect that's happening. And the one of the big things that Christine also brought up is like, as women, we have to accept that pain is a part of the process. Like, you should not give up if people say no, because you're going to hear a lot of no's before someone says yes. But whoever says yes is going to be your all-time mentor, supporter, and follower for life. And that's the biggest learning point that I have in terms of the evolving and accepting, because there are few people who want to support women in leadership and want to see them grow, and you want to be able to find them sooner and get as much advice as possible. And as Christy mentioned, like, don't wait for opportunities to happen. That doesn't really happen. You got to make your own opportunities or self-volunteer, because we're talking about, in terms of like, let's keep it simple, women versus men. The biggest hurdle is how women really respond to a job application to a man would. And it's a data problem. Most of the leadership is being run by men, and you want to make sure that you don't get bogged down by those numbers, and say, like, change your mindset to be like, okay, this is a statistical problem, and people are more used to having men as bosses and having men in leadership, but doesn't mean that you can change that. And the change is painful, but you can be part of the change, and you can support other women to be part of the change. So I think that's really what I'm seeing, a little bit of change in terms of the evolution in the industry. What I would love to leave, and hopefully by being part of such amazing panels for younger generation, is feel free to ask questions, feel free to stay connected, feel free to engage with women like us, or other women who have done things which are not conventional, are so-called outliers, and understand their journey, and know that it wasn't easy and it's not going to be easy. And be part of that, be part of those groups, be part of the networks, because it's achievable and it's doable. And hopefully, when with my being the CEO of the company and running it with several team members and so forth, it gives other women in general the inspiration to know that it's possible. And you guys are already talking about cross country, being athletes, and also it's quite similar journey. Like, if you want to achieve something big, you have to put in the work and the effort. And as women, it's a narrow lane, but it's doable lane, and you just have to get comfortable that this is going to be part of the game, and you got to win it. And another big thing that I would want to leave is, it's okay to fail. I think as women in general, we're trained to be more settled in our jobs. We're trained to be finding more risk averse positions, but we are not trained to think big in general, or challenge our thought process, or challenge the society. And it's okay to do that, and it's okay to not win, because it's not about the failure, it's about the learning curves. I did not start this company because I want to make billions of dollars. I mean, that's definitely a secondary goal. The primary goal is, I'm passionate about this problem and I really want to solve this. And no one is working on it, and I took it upon myself to solve it. And it happens, and it'll happen. And there are a lot of failure points, but to me, I see them as amazing learning experiences to, for me to grow as a person, as a CEO, and as a woman in the community to contribute in the field.
Yes, absolutely. I love your point about failure and how you should treat it as a learning opportunity instead. Now for Christine, I know that at Blue Clarity, you've done a lot to inspire social change. Like you mentioned, your hackathon series that brought professionals together to solve some of the world's biggest problems, to integrating gender equity into foreign policy decision-making. So how do you think other companies or organizations can encourage these changes in the future?
So I feel like there is some encouragement and movement industry-wide in terms of equality and trying to make things more equitable. The question is how, because one thing that people don't want to see is opportunities taken away from people who deserve it to give it to people who don't. So that is something that, when rubber hits the road and you're actually doing the things that you want to do, like what does that look like, so that we can all see more equality. I want to say, like, there is a business case, a bottom line reason for equality and to achieve equality, because a lot of times it's not just taking an opportunity from someone and giving it to another. It's looking at people that are qualified and they might be overlooked because of their race and gender. I feel like there's a good bottom line case to say, there are a lot of qualified people out there that are being overlooked because maybe they don't have the right words on their resume, or they're not saying the right words during the interview. So it takes a little bit of more intention on the company's part to be more, to pursue equality, because it is work. And I feel like there's this like social risk that people are taking by making changes. So I feel like not just for, the looks of equality, but, there is a bottom line case for it. And then as a result, I feel like that employees will be more satisfied because they see better treatment in the workplace. And that helps with recruiting and retention and employee satisfaction. So, people stay at that company longer when they see, more fair treatment. And so like one of the things that companies can also do is advocate for mentoring. So, whether it's like one-on-one or creating these like mentoring circles, there are many ways that you can encourage and advocate for mentoring to happen. So yeah, in terms of other companies, and also, a lot of people feel like that can't happen at small companies, but I mean, our company is small, and from the beginning, we're encouraging those things. And I would say, from the beginning, from the roots of when you start, that's when you start talking about equality and also like equal pay for equal work, those kinds of things. So that is something that needs to be encouraged actually at the employee level as well, and company leadership.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I think change has to start at the bottom and then move its way up for sure. And then for Grace, so you recently became a full-time designer at EA, so I first want to congratulate you on that. And looking forward, what are your aspirations for both yourself and the graphic design field?
Yeah, for sure. I just recently started full-time. I'm also trying to finish up school at the same time, so that's another thing I'm gonna do. But I'm mostly doing UX and product design. I also dabble in graphic and brand design I design a lot of marketing material for EA's internal events as well, and some of the employee resource groups internally. I mostly design websites as well and design systems for my main job. Definitely in the future, definitely want to continue working as a designer in the entertainment, like games or social media field. Really love designing for communities, and my overall mission is to reduce cyberbullying, actually, just because of personal experiences. So I really think I can make a big impact, especially in games or social media, and I can design experiences to educate people to kind of be nicer to each other. I'm also really passionate about community building, and I definitely want to keep running design buddies for as long as I can to create an inclusive community of designers, because it wasn't something I felt earlier. So I just wanted to change the culture and make everybody feel welcome and open to start design. And we have a lot of big plans for design buddies coming up. We're launching like career fair, also merch line, even more free events. So you guys should check it out as well. And personally, I also want to start a TikTok and even more, create more content to help designers, students, and just sharing my knowledge in a very fun and interactive way. Because I really love like entertaining people. Like I mentioned earlier, I love screaming in class to keep them on their toes. I kind of still do that. Not like actually do that, but I love just like entertaining people, bring value, and making people feel like entertained. And so definitely want to create more social media to do that. And I also want to race a half marathon and a marathon one day. I'm running again because running is funning. And also want to travel the world and hopefully retire early and just see where life takes me.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Ming, if you want to take some audience questions now.
Yeah, so definitely. We're almost approaching the end of the panel, so this is a general question for all three of our speakers because I've seen this question being resonated all throughout this entire panel. So I guess my last question is, being women of color in a predominantly male field, what are your experiences with dealing with that, and what are some last pieces of advice that you can leave for all of the young women who are aspiring to be like you? And we'll start with Joe.
I think use that to your advantage for your growth. Mostly, again, it comes down to me for is the data. Most men have a lot of experience in leadership and also how they got where they got. So don't feel afraid or don't judge them that they would not want to talk about that. Actually, my own experience, I feel like many men in leadership are quite lonely, and their journey and experience was also pretty difficult and challenging, but they fought through it alongside all the other challenges they were having as in their career paths. So make them your friends, not your enemies. Learn from their mistakes, learn what worked for them, what didn't work for them, and adapt. Perhaps those things won't work for you, perhaps those things you may not be thinking about, and then making your own mental model of what kind of role model you would want to seek from other majority folks who have done this before, and how you probably could make an impact in your field is, I think, something critical learning for myself.
Yeah, thank you so much for those words of wisdom. Now I'll pass it on to Christine.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I would say when I'm working in a engineering environment, I feel like I actually do see a lot of women. Where I see a huge contrast is when I'm talking business to business conversations and we're talking about opportunities and going after work and things like that. Many times I am the only non-white male person in the room. And so when I see that, I personally feel a responsibility to speak at the table. I don't know I don't know the psychology behind it, like whether I should or I shouldn't feel that way. But I feel like I have to represent women and I have to represent race. So I make a point to say something, even when I feel like, maybe it only adds a little bit of value. Just the fact that I'm speaking at the table, I feel like is a good representation, as long as it has something of value. So I would say, I'm always doing things that are like a little bit outside of my comfort zone. And instead of thinking about all the ways that I don't belong at the table, I think about all the reasons why I do belong at the table. And actually just thinking about that now, I thought about how growing up, I played a lot of basketball and playing like pickup games. So naturally I would play with a lot of guys because you don't really see that many, courts where there's like all women playing. And so the way that I justified me being at a basketball court and playing pickup games, if I'm better than the worst person on the court, then I deserve to be at the basketball court playing as well. So like no one can tell me that I don't belong there because I do. So I would say, like if I look at a table, a boardroom table, and like I may not be like the top generating revenue company there, but I do provide a value. There is a value proposition to me being at the table and me being on the team. So I shouldn't let all the other voices tell me why I shouldn't be there. So
yeah, I absolutely agree with that. The best way to think the best way to approach being a woman in STEM is just often to think positively and think confidently. So yeah, passing it on to Grace, same question.
Yeah, for sure. I know I saw Taylor brought up in the chat as well, like in terms of cyberbullying, like the stigma against women in gaming. I definitely, so at EA, I don't work on games directly. I work on kind of player support systems, so player experience and employee experience. So I haven't personally felt discriminated against because I was a woman, or maybe I just didn't realize it. Because growing up, I was always told to pursue STEM. So I can't say I have experience being discriminated against, but when I was playing games, I do have a lot of stories to share when it comes to like cyberbullying, being a woman. And so like if I were to join Discord voice chat channels, like some women, they even like have to have a voice filter, or I don't even join them just because like people hear that I'm a woman, then they'll like treat me differently, or yeah, say like inappropriate things and things like that. Or there's also the other side where I got gifted a lot of random money from MapleStory just by being a woman. So I have very just like interesting experiences just because of my gender in games. And kind of like my advice moving forward is, it might sound small, but just like using language instead of like he, him, I use like they, and just like hey guys, I just say like, hey everyone. So I feel like practicing that just like a little goes a long way, kind of like changing the overall culture and the dialogue. And in the workplace, there's always like employee resource groups. So at EA, we have a women's ultimate group and also different groups of minority groups. So, and also pushing diversity inclusion efforts and just educate people and I always like to call out people if they say something like that might be racist or sexist or discriminatory. And so just like things like that, speaking up for people, taking part of diversity inclusion initiatives, and just like using terms like hey everyone instead of hey guys.
Absolutely. So we're approaching the end of our workshop. I wanted to give a huge thank you to all our speakers, Joe, Christine, and Grace. Thank you for all the words of wisdom that you've given us today. And to our attendees, thank you for attending. In 5 minutes, we'll be hosting a launching a business workshop. So if you guys are interested in hopping over there in 5 minutes, that's what we'll be doing. Yeah, thank you so much for attending.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone. Thank you.